Good afternoon to all of my wonderful, wonderful peers and support. I am Dr. Kanasha Brown. I have the honor and privilege of being the superintendent of Prairie Hills Elementary School District 144 here in Markham, Illinois. I absolutely love this community. I am homegrown, so for me, this is not only a opportunity of passion, but it's just I've invested all my work in improving student outcomes. And so thank you so much for having me. I hope to spread a little bit of knowledge, and if not, nothing else more than some laughter, because we all need laughter in education nowadays, right? And that certainly will keep us from crying. And so, with that being said, welcome.
Thank you. And Miss Reagan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Carla Reagan. I am the Executive Director of Federal Programs for Las Cruces Public Schools in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and was born and raised in Las Cruces. Went through the Las Cruces Public School District, so I'm a product of this school district, and I consider myself a success story of our district, and we have many. So I'm very vested in our district and our community. My why is the children of Las Cruces and ensuring that they have the opportunities that every other child should have in our country. And I love the work that I do. I started as a teacher. I went into administration. My very favorite job was being a principal. I was a principal for 11 years and loved that. And then wanted to continue to do the work at a larger level. And federal programs is really the heart of the work that I do, working with our at-risk student populations. Our district is primarily students of Hispanic descent. We're about, I think, don't know the exact number. Right now, we're around 85% Hispanic. And so that's unique, to a lot of other areas and brings with it some great, wonderful things that we can do with our children with culture, but also some challenges. And so that's why we're here.
Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. I wanted to share that, we asked Dr. Brown and Miss Reagan to be here today to actually talk about their experiences working with GROW. And so this is PAPER's outcome-focused high-impact tutoring solution. GROW programs are currently in 7 states, and we're seeing a really big gains in boosting student on-grade level proficiency in just a few weeks. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with high impact or high dosage tutoring, it's evidence-backed tier 2 and 3 interventions that provide small group, high dosage, 90 minutes per week, state-aligned curriculum instruction during school hours. So bringing it back to our speakers, giving you all some context and feel free, please, Ms. Reagan, Dr. Brown, to kind of speak more to your experiences with this. But what made it clear that a tier 2 or 3 support needed to become a priority? And let's start actually with Ms. Reagan this time.
Great, thank you. So I'm looking at our iReady data. That is what made it clear to us that we were seeing significant percentages of students that were performing below grade level. And our tier 1 core instruction, that is the heart of what we do, but it alone wasn't enough, and we needed to do something else. And so we had students, especially our English language learners and those from other at-risk student subgroup populations who really needed that personalized, consistent, and targeted support. And even though we're not from a rural area, it is really hard for us to find tutors that we can hire part-time to come in and do that targeted support for our students. So really prioritizing that tier 2 and tier 3 intervention became a matter of equity and access for us, and we needed to find a way to make sure that that was happening for our students.
And what about for you, Dr. Brown? What was your experience?
So I share the same view as Carla. We really had to do something. Our learning gaps were so wide, and it really for us wasn't a matter of if our teachers and our administrators were doing interventions and work, but when those gaps are so large, how do you begin to close them? And so, like all other districts, we were coming off the impacts of COVID. We were battling things like attendance. We come, oh, I'm gonna date myself in my career from a time of just get the kid here in school. Like the more you are in school, the better your attendance is, and you'll be able to learn, and we'll make that valiant effort. And so with us, we were very intentional about our approach to what our interventions were going to be. So we developed what we call pre-K through 8 academic support. So we had a very specific type of intervention for our pre-K through second grade. And yes, we started it back at pre-K because again, we still had students that were not kinder ready, right? And that was a big area for us, that we knew that in order to close gaps, we had to push back and go as far as possible. And so we looked at growth for our fourth and fifth grade, really to be able to close gaps in a minimal amount of time. And that's what it was for our particular school district.
And I want to add a question to that. You mentioned fourth and fifth grade. How did you narrow down? How did you decide fourth and fifth grade? And then within the student body, how did you narrow down who would be part of that program?
So one of the things is that we really had to change our thinking about how our interventions were best serving our students. It's typical that when you look at your interventions, you start off with data and looking at the kids who are on the cusp, right? Like, let's give these kids this push so that we can get them where they needed to be. Ours was a little bit different. We went to our students whose learning gaps were the greatest. And when we looked at those students, we knew even to give them a fighting chance that we weren't trying to use them as if they were on the cups, but we were really trying to give them the foundational skills they needed to be able to help improve their outcome. And because it will cost money, let me just tell everybody that now. Everybody patch your pockets at the same time. Are we all doing it? I can't see if we are, but after we pat our pockets, you have to be very intentional about how you're going to use those resources. And so for us, when we selected our fourth and fifth grade students, we didn't select those students where we had resources inside of our schools that we knew could close those gaps. What we did is we utilized our students who we knew we needed those additional tier 3 academic supports. And that's how we were able to select our students. In a perfect world, we would have been able to give it to everyone, but that's not our story. That's not our resource. So it wasn't really about access for Prairie Hills. It was about identifying our students that had the greatest need at that time, and then being able to give them these small doses, right? So with Grow, we really had to look at our achievement data. We didn't start with our third grade scores and our fourth grade scores. We started looking further back. So we looked at multiple assessments, see how the students were. If our students, if they didn't close the learning gap, then they were selected to be a part of the program.
Wow. So a lot of not just looking at the present, but looking at the past and that trajectory.
Yes.
Wow. What was your experience like at Las Cruces in terms of looking at which student populations would be part of the program?
Yeah, for sure. So we had paper for our middle school and high school students, have, continue right now. But so we really didn't want to focus on those groups. We wanted to look at groups that we didn't have a resource for at the time. So looking at our data, looking at where we were seeing some slumps, maybe students were doing well and then we saw them coming down. And then discussing with the staff at Grow what they had to offer, what they recommended talking with our principals, and then coming to really a consensus of what would be best. Each school looks a little different depending on their need, but they were to target students in third, fourth, or fifth grade. They could do all three grade levels, or they could choose one based off of their population. They also could choose either reading or math. We didn't dictate what they had to do at their school site because their data looked different at each school site. And we wanted to make sure that we were tailoring the needs of the students at those schools. So the GROW team, along with our support staff, worked together to determine which students needed the high impact tutoring the most, which students we were seeing the least growth in, that needed some type of little jump start to get them going. And we're seeing great gains from it. So each school took a look at their data. They did deep data dives, and they were allowed to make the decision on which students they would select to qualify or use the services, because obviously we couldn't afford to fund all of the students to be able to do that. And so we had to be very strategic on who we selected.
So you have this, you've spent the time looking at which students. What would you say were some of the kind of important steps that you took to make sure that the program was successful with these students? And we'll go backwards, Ms. Reagan, maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, so looking at our key steps to ensure that the implementation was successful, we really wanted to make sure that we embedded GROW into those intervention blocks. We started after the school year had started, and so those intervention blocks weren't necessarily built in at every school site. Some school sites it was, and so it made it much easier for those school sites that already had that embedded into their master schedules. So that was the first thing, making sure that we could embed that time into their master schedules so that it was a dedicated time for the students and it wasn't just willy-nilly. And then the collaboration with our GROW program designer was really important so that we could align the tutoring with our district curriculum. And so looking at our pacing guides, our Common Core state standards, and the curriculum that we're using as a district, and then aligning that together with the tutoring. So those are the first two steps we took. And then the GROW and paper staff have been an amazing support for our district, whether they're online or coming in person, to really work with our teachers and provide that embedded professional learning to them with their students at the time that they're launching everything, coming down and making sure that things are going well. That relationship has been very important and has kept us going. So it's been great. The other thing is the lessons that they included that had the scripted lesson plans, all of the instructional decks, the engagement tools that they use. So planning that together with the teachers, making sure that the teachers provide on this end what the students need to be able to do the work as they're doing the tutoring. Making sure that they have those materials readily available, whether it's whiteboards or calculators or manipulatives or different things that they needed. So, and then that continual ongoing progress monitoring has been so important to make sure that we're staying on target and that our students continue to grow.
Amazing. Dr. Brown, I want to swing it over to you. You before our call, you talked about a fun way that you also integrated GROW into your program. So if you can tell us a little bit more about how you set it up for success.
Absolutely. And let me just say, Carla is so amazing out of the two of us. Because my story is they was voluntold. You gonna do what I said? No, I'm just playing. I didn't volunteer anybody, but I was close. But I love the decorum, Carla, right? So our approach was different. As I explained before, in Prairie Hills, we developed a pre-K through 8 academic support. And we were very intentional about two things. Last year, we adopted what's called the Effective School Framework, which is a set of 5 levers that we expect our principals to operate in, right? And so on each one of our campuses, as part of that, level one is you have to have a functioning, effective leadership team. So what does your instructional leadership team do, and what do they look like? They were responsible for developing those pre-K through 8 supports. And so we were very intentional about looking at our students' data. It was very much a negotiation, right? So at the superintendent end, I will give the investment and we will get you the resources, but it became incumbent upon our instructional leadership team to talk about how would you use this resource effectively and what will be the trade-off. When you are doing things like grow or you're doing paper on demand, what we found is that with teachers and in the classroom, it can't be another layer on. Please don't give me another software system. Please don't give me another tool that you said I have to use. Please respect my craft, right? And give me the autonomy or some feedback. And so what developed for us is that we have what's called community structure interventions. We didn't take our interventions and look at them on grade level, but rather we put all of our students across all 9 of our campuses into a community. And so what this would look like is that you could be a 5th grader, right? And still be able to have access to grow. You could be a 4th grader and have access to grow. But what we are getting ready to do is start to look at our 3rd graders and 2nd graders who are able to accelerate. And so in order to kind of eliminate the barrier, because you can use grow as an accelerator, please don't use deficit thinking and think that, okay, I could just use it for my kids or my kiddos who are far behind. We had a Harry Potter theme at Markham Park called Potter in the Park. So all of my Hufflepuffs were our students that were on Grow. And so they encouraged each other. It was protected time. And they really enjoyed that because we didn't approach Grow as a deficit, right? We didn't tell them, you have this gap and you need to be here. Rather than the Hufflepuffs got shirts. They had their part of the hallway. They had their time when they got together to meet. When they were getting ready to go on Grow, they encouraged each other attendance. If I didn't see one of my team members who was in my house there, I would even ask about them. So it was very unique and creative. And we just moved to a community intervention model because in that model, we not only want to close gaps, we also wanted to accelerate our kids as well, right? Some of our parents felt like our kids weren't challenged. I don't think that they're getting what they need, and Grow became a way for us to do that.
So you talked about in the beginning about the voluntold method.
Absolutely.
But in reality, one of the things we hear is getting buy-in, right? Like you both talked about the great urgency that you had with these big gaps. And so I would love for you to share how you kind of created that sense of, well, not the sense of urgency. How did you approach that and get your staff and teams on board around this work?
I think for me, our biggest asset is our instructional leadership teams. Our instructional leadership teams at the campus are not designed around title, right? This is really some of our most passionate, most, I would bet these teachers against any other teachers in any other district. And I'm really sorry, right? I'm really sorry to say that now, but it is the very truth. And so when our teachers were able to see how it truly impacted their student growth, and we took them on that journey with us. So like in the Hufflepuff, when they saw their kids moving, when they saw the increases, which I will share here in just a second, the teachers bought in. Really, when you are talking about the staff buy-in, I like to say it is putting things in their toolbox, right? And if you put it in my toolbox and I understand it and I'm comfortable with it, more often than not, I will use that tool. So we wanted to make sure that, again, our teachers were well supported, they had a space, and we made it fun, right? So we also had to take something off of their plate and say, here is where our investment dollars are going to go. And then that you really started to see not only our student joy but our teacher joy, because remember, they had the Hufflepuff house, so they will go over to the other house and be like, look at what my kids did, right? And so those are the things that you want and to talk about. For our academic supports, we were creative with our initiatives. I'm going to make all of us feel old on this phone, because to get buy-in, we did a contest. And so our schools that had the most engagement, we in Illinois just had Toys R Us open back up in Norridge. I cannot make anybody remember the Toys R Us. Am I dating myself? Whoop, whoop. Okay. So we have only one. And the school that had the most engagement, we took them to Toys R Us, and students got a $30 gift card. And so when I tell you, our students were like, and our teachers were like, my kids are going, they're going to be engaged. So it was using incentive and creative things like that to get our staff buy-in. And they had to see that it was working. Staff they buy in. If I can see my turnaround, remember, this is just a 12-week program. So if I can see my turnaround and I see scores and I see things improving every 4 weeks, I'm feeling good about that, because it's also serving as a way that it's helping me in my classroom and helping them with that data.
I love that. Dr. Brown, I'm definitely a Toys R Us kid.
Yes.
Ms. Reagan, is there anything that you all did in terms of, getting the teams aligned?
Nothing as exciting as Dr. Brown did, for sure. But I'm a Toys R Us kid as well. So, and we don't have one in Las Cruces anymore. So that's exciting that you guys do. But no, really, I think that our teachers already felt that sense of urgency, and they were wanting this type of program because of the learning loss that we were seeing due to the pandemic. The also trying to get kids engaged again, increasing our attendance. Really, there was a lot of issues that were caused by the pandemic, right? That we were trying to address and get over that hump and get back to where we were pre-pandemic. And so our teachers were ready for it. They see the data, they know it, they understand it, and they knew that we needed something else. The schools, and we don't have it at all of our elementary schools right now, but the schools that we have it at, they were using another program previously that was similar to this. But Grow offered more alignment and more of what we were looking for. And so I didn't really see that there was not that sense of urgency, nor was there a lack of staff buy-in. But we did frame it for them as an extension of their instruction, that it wasn't going to be extra work for them, that the staff with Paper Grow are so amazing and working with us to ensure that we have that easy transition into using this program. And then we also just really emphasized that alignment to curriculum to build that trust, so that they knew if I release my kids to somebody else, that they are going to ensure that my students are learning and growing and getting the support that they need. And so that was that's that little piece of being able to let go, that we had to work with the teachers to ensure them that it was going to work and they were going to be okay. And then I think, like Dr. Brown, just sharing that early success with them, showing them that it was working, letting them see that data and getting that feedback really built that momentum and that excitement to continue to go.
Yeah.
And now moving into next year, where we no longer have all of the ESSER funds that we had to be able to pay for these programs, we have to start relying on other funding, other grants. And so that was one of my questions, since Title I is in my department, to the schools that are currently using Grow, is If we don't have other funding available, are you willing to use your school Title I allocation to continue to support grow? And all of the schools that are currently using that are willing to do that, given that they have enough funds to do it. So that speaks volumes as well.
Yeah, actually, let's talk results. So we're going to go a little bit over on this segment because we want to make sure to get some of the big questions here. But what did you see that told you, whether it was, in the data or something else, that told you that it was actually making a difference for students? We'll start with Miss Reagan.
Okay. So I think the first thing to me is our attendance rate, because we were seeing that, whatever it was that we were offering, we weren't having a lot of engagement and a lot of students that were having consistent attendance. And so overall, looking at our average attendance for our students that participate in GROW, it is at 82%, which is higher than what we were seeing. Our attendance rates really dipped. We used to have great high attendance rates. And so to see that was making an impact for our students and that we were having that great attendance rate because they wanted to be there to attend their GROW sessions was really exciting to us. And then looking at like our pre-assessments and then our progress monitoring as we went along, I'll highlight a couple of pieces of data for you. The ones that I want to highlight is our overall ELA proficiency rose from 20% to 42%. And this is for the students participating in GROW. Our math proficiency from the pre-assessment until now rose from 5% to 45%. And that's the overall, all of the students who are using GROW. And then breaking it down into a couple of grade levels, I want to highlight that ELA data in fourth grade went from 34% to 73%. That was our highest rate of growth. And then ELA in third grade, all the way down from 10% to 42%. So we're seeing great increases on our assessments and progress monitoring through the GROW program.
Wow. I will swing it over to Dr. Brown. I just had to take a moment there. It's very exciting to hear that. Yep. Oh, you're on mute, Dr. Brown.
Yes. So with our students, remember, team, I told you earlier that we really approached it. And so our biggest gains were our students who were about 3 grade level behind. What we started to see with our GROW, and this is for our 4th and 5th grade, that the number of students who were 3 grade levels behind was reduced by 60%. For 5th grade, it was reduced by 75%. So again, taking our students who are 3 grade levels plus and moving them was really where we started to really know that this data, that our GROW data was working. Also, our greatest increase was in grade level proficiency. So not only were our students not behind 3 grade levels, the increase of the number of students who are now on grade level is where we saw our largest gains. Again, because we do community structured interventions, all of our students at all of our sites get them. But now our goal is, because they're on grade level proficiency, is to accelerate those students. And so that's what we will be utilizing GROW to do. So what it does is it becomes a continuum, right? You start with the students, those specific groups of students who are 3 grade levels below. We get them to the point where they're moving into being grade level proficient. And when we get them at grade level proficiency, then we're accelerating their learning. Because one of the things that I will say with GROW is really when you're looking at when you're identifying students, you really have to do a reflection on how did the students get 3 grade levels behind in the first place, right? So keep in mind, the students that I'm talking about are our 4th and 5th grade. So if in 4th grade, I'm testing 3 grade levels behind, that puts me where? At kinder, right? And so we really had to make those connections on what does this continuum look like to help these students to get them to where that they needed to be. But for us, our greatest gains were the decrease in the number of students who were in 3 grade levels or behind. Then it became our students who were near or at grade level proficient. For 4th and 5th grade, we see our largest increase, followed by the number of students who are 2 grades levels behind or more. So that's kind of our data snapshot.
Thank you. Well, I want to make sure that we have time to break out and get to know each other. So just to wrap up our segment here, question for both of you, 2 questions, which is one, if you could go back to the beginning, what's one thing you wish you'd known? And then also, what's one piece of advice you'd give to the folks that are in the room, just who are looking into an intervention like this? So, Dr. Brown, we'll put you on the spot there.
Am I being truthful or am I breaking decorum?
All real talk. This is
oh my goodness.
Give it to us.
Okay. The one thing that I wish I would have known was how to utilize grow earlier, right? That's one of the things I wish I would have knew. I think oftentimes we come in and we feel like we are all here to improve student outcomes. And I wish I would have known and understood that for some adults, that's just not the case. And politics and things like that get in the way. And so in my head, I was like, this is a great resource. Let's go. And I did not realize the politics to be able to say, no, it's not all of our students, but these 100 students we have moved. And what value is that to you? See, I went into this work like, okay, I just want to do great things for our kids in our community. But it's not just going to be okay, everybody's going to like grow because of the price tag with it. And I wish I would have knew that earlier, but I'll leave that right there.
Is there any advice you'd give?
I would give advice. I would say be very intentional, be on top of your data, and make sure that you are telling the story for that particular student. And I'll share an example with you. Just because life is lifing, I had one of our students who is in 5th grade. And when I tell you, he is the most resilient, kind, intelligent king I have ever seen. But life has devalued him. Life has left him feeling alone. Life has oftentimes made him bitter. And so I had a young man in 5th grade who was, for all intensive purposes, on his way to prison. And I talked to him and I said, well, you're in 5th grade, why don't you come to school? And he said, because I'm supposed to be in 7th. Nobody registered me after. And of course, I broke decorum. I said, well, what is it that you want? He's like, I just want to be with my peers. And I said, absolutely, because you're too grown to be in my K-5. You really should be in middle school. And so the only way I knew to help him was to put him in the GROW program. And I said, if you commit yourself to GROW, and I need you to show me that you are ready for middle school, get me someplace. And I will tell you, he is one of our students who exceeded. He is on his way to middle school. He still is still a car though. Don't get this twisted. He still will do whatever he wants to do. But when he brought me his progress report, and it was 2 C's, a D, a A, and a B, and to know that GROW gave him the perception of I can do this work. I am doing this work. And he would go happily and take his Hufflepuffs because he's older than everybody every day. That made it worth it. And you don't get to see that often. Oftentimes we tell ourselves we want to move kids. I'm here for kids. I'm here for the community, but that comes at a price. And that's a very real conversation to say, how much is one person valued? How much do you value that in them? And so that's what I would share. You have to tell your story. You have to tell it for the kids who are in grow. You have to be on top of your data. You have to share your data, good, bad, ugly, right? Because everything for us is not test scores. It's that child who tells me, hey, I'm good. I'm going to be in middle school and I'm going to play basketball. And you going to come see me, Dr. Brown? Yes, I am. And I can't even play basketball. But it's those reasons. So that's my advice. Be very intentional about your students. Know how they got to be below the grade levels in the first place, if you can, and focus on moving them forward and tell your story.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that very real talk. And I'll ask Ms. Reagan to close us out here. What's the one thing you wish you'd known, and then your advice for the group?
I don't even know how to follow that. That was amazing. And let me say, before I say what I was going to say, is Dr. Brown, that's inspiring me to get to know those students that are those data points a little more intimately than what I do now. So thank you. I appreciate that. So really, the one thing that I wish I had known, and I have not worked directly with the schools. It's more been like over, seeing that, but I wish that I was one. I wish that I had spent more time at the school sites with the staff that were creating the schedules and looking at the data and being a part of that more than I was. I also wish that I had known that not all of our schools had an intervention block already as part of their master schedule before we did this, because I could have helped them a little differently, but we got there. So my advice is, no matter where you're at, just get started. It doesn't matter if you start with the few students. We had 500 seats and we hadn't filled them yet, but we just had to get started and move forward. And then we added more groups as we went along. And so that's my piece of advice, is just dig into that data, figure out who you're going to start with and get started. And then you can build from there. And even if you start with the wrong kiddos, it's okay. You can never go wrong with offering kids support and help. You can backtrack. And when it's time to look at your groups again, then you look at the groups differently and make sure that you're just, meeting the mark the next time, right? And so those are my pieces of advice, because it wasn't perfect. It still isn't perfect, but we're working through it and we're getting better and we're adding more kids as we go along. The other big piece is the communication, making sure that everybody knows why you're selecting the groups that you're selecting. The parents know why their students are being selected for this and what it's about. That communication is huge and really helped us make sure that this went off smoothly instead of getting pushback from people. So making sure that you do that up front is really important. I think that's it. That's my
Wow.
advice.
Well, thank you so much to both Dr. Brown and Ms. Reagan. I really appreciate it, and I feel very inspired as well.